Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. It is Wednesday and this feels like it's been a long week so far and it's just getting started.
I know there's so much news, and heavy news
happening.
in the last 2 weeks. It's been like
very heavy, I know. A lot of heavy for many of our viewers and we appreciate you sticking with us and getting through it.
So coming up on Rising, once again, the Trump administration is facing accusations of trying to whitewash American history.
Plus, Luigi Mangioni's terrorism charges have actually been tossed. Some of his supporters were cheering over it.
And as Israel begins their offensive into Gaza City, a UN commission is saying Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. So, Robbie, let's start with what's on your radar first.
All right, Attorney General Pam Bondi has made quite the First Amendment-related faux pas in a recent interview about what the federal government could do to deter political violence in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. She said the federal government would go after anyone engaged in hate speech. Bondi should know, however, that hate speech is vigorously protected by the First Amendment and, as such, cannot be policed. Now, unfortunately, the Attorney General made an illusory distinction between free speech and hate speech, implying that the latter was subject to government action. There's free speech and then there's hate speech, and there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society. That's what she said. Take a look.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech.
Bondi sounds like Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's pick to be vice president, who made similar claims during the 2024 campaign. And that's a very bad thing because both of them are appallingly wrong. The Supreme Court has repeatedly affirmed that so-called hate speech falls under First Amendment protection. Most recently in the 2017 case Mattal versus Tam, which was decided unanimously after numerous commentators, including many fellow conservatives, called out Bondi. She tried to clarify her remarks. She said she was referring to, quote, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence. Okay, well, she's correct that true threats of violence against specific individuals or against institutions, those do lose First Amendment protection if they're specific enough, though general advocacy of violence is usually still protected. You can say it. This kind of speech isn't called hate speech, though. It's called incitement. Hate speech on its own, simply not a separate category of unprotected speech from the standpoint of the Supreme Court. Now, in a separate interview, Bondi also suggested that employers had an obligation to fire employees for engaging in hate speech or for actions such as refusing to print pro-Kirk posters at Office Depot. Let's watch.
Employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you. Businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. We can prosecute you for that. I have Harmeet Dillon right now in our civil rights unit looking at that immediately, that Office Depot had done that. We're looking at that.
Given the conservative legal advocates have worked tirelessly to defeat public accommodation laws that clash with private entities' moral, political, or religious beliefs, many on the right were not pleased to hear Bondi adopting this position. The Daily Wire's Matt Walsh called her opinion insane and said that President Trump should fire her. Senator Ted Cruz similarly clarified that the First Amendment absolutely protects hate speech, while noting that individuals could still suffer professional consequences for saying cruel things about Kirk. Ironically, Bondi could have avoided this mess had she listened more closely to one specific person, Charlie Kirk. As journalist Brad Palumbo pointed out, Kirk previously wrote on X, hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. Words to remember. And so, Lindsay, people are very upset on the right with Pam Bondi over this, and it is important because the whole public accommodation thing, this is the bake me a cake case, remember that? Yeah. Conservatives have fought for the right to say if you're a cake baker or a wedding photographer, you don't agree with same-sex marriage, you should not be required to perform that service in violation of your religious beliefs. And there was a cake baker, it's a Colorado case, I believe, got sued by a couple, and it's a whole Supreme Court case. The point being, conservatives have worked forever to defeat that rule that you must cater to a customer you don't agree with politically, religiously, ethically, morally. This would be doing the same thing. And her not recognizing that was a big, flashing warning sign for Matt Walsh and other conservatives. I agree with. Given the Epstein thing, given this, I saw numerous people on the right expressing the idea, well, how many strikes does this lady get before we say, okay, you're not doing what we want?
That's the biggest thing. I think the overall, and from the other side of the aisle looking at it, it's like, well, what is important to the party? Because if Pam Bondi is saying the exact thing that was railed against, and President Trump for years has went at being at the top of the Republican Party, but I'll say most people in the party have gone on about censorship and how much this needs to stop. And so to say that you want to implement it on a level of calling it a crime and putting people possibly behind bars for the things that they've said, that to me is even a step further than the party ever even wanted to have a conversation about. We were just talking about canceling mostly during 2020 and past that of people who said things online that were negative and just canceling them from their job, which private employers are, like you said, able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want. But we don't need to bring the government in.
Right, it doesn't need to be like a rule or a law. The biggest thing to me is that digital vigilantes, to me, don't need to exist online to the point that everyone needs to even lose their job. Past what Pam Bondi's saying, I think that we're going down a rabbit hole of the exact opposite, coming from the people of the party with the exact opposite thoughts. So Elon Musk in 2023 literally tweeted, if you're, quote, unfairly treated by your employer due to posting or liking something, we will fund your legal bill, no limit. Please let us know. And you remember around that time, it was around cancel culture, like the height of it, or the Republican Party starting to see their power grow and saying, we're not going to allow cancellations to happen. It's why X kind of does what it does. I don't like any of the negativity online surrounding the death of Charlie Kirk and people laughing or anything like that. But I do think employers have their own options. I don't think the government should be involved in trying to make people, specifically federal workers, because those are the first people that they can fire, right? Just because they don't like what they said. I think it could be a conversation. We can talk about a moral code. But if it comes to against the law, now we're rolling way past what's appropriate, because then we must comb through all the instances where other parties were offended, and there are several.
It's not against the law, so we should dispense with any kind of legal ramifications for speech, for justification for violence, gross, ugly, not a legal issue. Now, you can suffer professional workplace consequences. I think the line that Vice President J.D. Vance drew was a fine one, saying we should not try to cancel or go after people who just expressed disagreement with Kirk or didn't like Kirk. He called on people yesterday
to get fired
for advocacy or appreciation for or justification for violence. That's the line he drew. Now, I'm not someone who, I don't really like the whole kind of call your manager type deal. So am I going to be sitting around, looking for people who said kind of shady things to get fired? Absolutely not. I think conservatives have better ways to spend their time, probably. I'm not a fan of social media derived mobs, but if you justified violence in public, that was a pretty bad choice you made. Maybe just leave those thoughts to yourself. Like you said yesterday, if you don't have anything nice to say,
it's classic
don't say it.
101.
No, it's great advice.
I think it would behoove the Republican Party to have come up with a strategy together rather than the knee-jerk reaction that we're seeing of everybody getting on podcasts, responding, and because then you have what Pam Bondi is doing, who was speaking openly. And I know it's been the party of transparency, right, to try to get on those podcasts immediately and have dialogue.
I'm glad we got to hear what you had to say. I just don't like what you had to say.
Well, that's what I mean. The dialogue's all over the place. It's kind of like, okay, let's cancel everybody. Wait, we hate cancellation culture. What so it's just like, how about we first start with bringing the country together and saying this was wrong. Let's try to rectify this from ever happening again.
Well, next up, the alleged Charlie Kirk shooter is making his first court appearance, and we have learned more about his potential motives from the indictment. We will be discussing that. Stay with us.